This is your Filipino radio experience in Las Vegas. PHLV Radio.
The Filipino American Cancer Care now brings you On the Air with FACC, tributes and support to those impacted by cancer. On the Air with FACC, the Filipino American Cancer Care on PHLV Radio.
Good evening, America. Good morning, Philippines. Magandang gabi, America. Magandang umaga, Pilipinas. It's a Friday once again, January 22, 2021. My name is Josie Moralidad Azaiman, President and founder of the Filipino American Cancer Care. Welcome to our radio show On the Air with FACC on PHLV Radio. In Las Vegas, we have Johan behind the camera. And of course, my co-founder and Executive Vice President of the Filipino American Cancer Care, Ed Logan from Virginia, and Richie Vicente, one of our board of directors from the Filipino American Cancer Care. Ed and Emmerich, good evening. Magandang gabi sa inyong dalawa.
Hey Josie, it's Friday. Thank God it's Friday. It's been a full week, and we witnessed a new inauguration. I'm glad it's safe, and now we'll continue educating our listeners and raising the awareness for cancer advocacy. And I'm excited tonight, to have our guest. So, yes. How about you, Emmerich? How are you doing?
I am good. I'm so thankful that it's Friday. You were right. It's been very, very busy at work. As you all know, it's the Paycheck Protection Program launch, the full force. So it's been very busy for that. But I am so glad it's Friday because today is another day that a lot of our viewers and listeners is going to be listening and learning a lot of information about cancer, and that's our goal, to send a lot of education out there, and hopefully it will help someone out there and other people.
And of course, the Filipino American Cancer Care is going to have another fundraising event, which is going to be scheduled on February 27, 2021. Maybe our special guest tonight will join us on our bingo fundraising event.
You never know.
Of course, and we're gonna have exciting prizes, and syempre kasama na yung cash prize and gift packages from our sponsors and donors and supporters.
Tita Josie Harrison is gonna be hosting it again. So
all right,
people who enjoyed it last time. So
it's always fun. Our events are always fun. The fundraising, it's really, really lively and a lot of entertainment.
And we would like to thank Emmerich and Ed, yung ating mga donors and sponsors. Yung mga pangalan po nila ay naka-post ngayon sa FACC page, Facebook page ng Filipino American Cancer Care. From the bottom of our hearts, thank you so much for supporting the services and programs of the Filipino American Cancer Care. Now, Ed, would you like to introduce our special guest tonight?
Yes. Tonight, please welcome Christopher Lawrence is the founder of The Hope Has Arrived, which he started in spring of 2018 with his dad. And the purpose is to help people find hope, strength, and peace against cancer. He's a stage 4 bile duct cancer survivor, guys. And besides running the NGO of The Hope Has Arrived, he serves as communications director for the Lifelines Outdoors, the outdoor program of Crew, and he's a writer, outdoor guide and speaker, and is happily married with his beautiful wife with 2 beautiful children, a 5-year and a 1-year old kids. So, Chris, please welcome to our show tonight.
Thank you so much.
Chris, it's so nice to have you here on our radio show. Now, before we sat down here, I was actually reading your website. And one thing that really caught my attention on your story is that you said during the spring of 2016, I endured the worst storm of my life, a searing back pain, and a subsequent MRI revealed the grim truth. I had stage 4 cancer. Now, how did you first find out about your cancer diagnosis? And when did you receive your diagnosis? And how did you feel about it? What was in your mind? I have so many questions. I'm sorry, Chris.
I remember it very vividly. It was a pretty challenging point in my life, and yeah, it was spring of 2016, and it kind of helped bring together some mysterious pain I'd been having for a few months. And my story is kind of one. It's like, well, so much for early detection. That would have been great, but that's not what happened for me. Mm-hmm. So I was training for some different athletic events. I was doing some triathlons.
How old were you then?
What's that?
How old were you at the time?
Oh, I was 37 years old.
Okay.
And my family and I, we were living in Colorado. And I was training for some events. And so, I was pretty active. And then I started having some of this back pain. And the thing was, there was no specific cause. And so I was like, okay. And I haven't had a history of back injuries or anything. And I went to a PT and then eventually, physical therapist and the doctor. And they're like, oh, you must have just sprained it. You're too young and healthy. And then, a few months went by and it just got worse to the point where it was like, I even had a back spasm, which I didn't know what that was, but they're terrible. And eventually I got them to do an MRI. And then I got that phone call that nobody wants to get where they're like, oh, yeah, actually we saw your MRI and it's really bad. You have cancer. And even worse than that, it's spreading from somewhere else. That spot in your back is cancer and it's coming from somewhere else. So it was like, wow, double whammy, cancer diagnosis. And then also that it's bad. It's not just like, hey, we're just going to treat this real quick and you'll be on with your life. It's like, this is a major event for you. So.
Gosh.
No, I was, I never heard of bile duct cancer. So how common is it?
It's more common than you would think, even if you just
Really?
if you go to Google and gosh, people search it,
Yeah.
thousands of times every month. I couldn't give you the exact statistics.
Okay.
And honestly, I was like, when I found out that I had that, I was like, what exactly is your bile duct? I don't,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is
Is
it
Yeah.
is it
Go ahead, Emily.
always just for young adults, or is there an age gap on who's getting it?
Yeah, it's not really a young
No.
adult disease. It would probably be more so found in people that are, 50s, 60s, 70s,
Yeah.
kind of older. I think it can strike younger too, but it was not what anybody was thinking it was going to be for me. So I even looking back with those doctors, I don't think like, oh, what were you thinking? It's like, no, I was young and healthy. And, for a lot of people, maybe it would have just been back pain and you move on, you get through it.
So
and
that
move on.
bile
So,
duct is part of our liver.
yes.
Wow. So
And remember, Josie, I remember one
Yes.
of our shows. The
Uh-huh.
liver is very important to process any chemo that you have to go intake, right? So it's really challenging if your liver is been damaged and then you're going to go with chemo. all of that. So
Mhm.
it's very challenging. So,
And how painful is bile duct cancer?
It's the only pain I had was from just how it had spread and it had gone to some bone and muscle, and that was painful. That was very painful. It was, it's a weird feeling. It's
Yeah.
not when but like I never had any of the symptoms. Like there are symptoms for this type of cancer, like,
Hmm.
oh gosh, like jaundice and some other things that honestly I've never had.
Hmm.
And it was when I got that news, it was so crazy because I'm like, they're going to tell me I have I must have, you know, did something to a disc in my back or
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
something like that, there was some chronic back issue that I didn't know
Hmm.
I had. And then when they told me that, I'm just like, whoa, that almost doesn't fit. And then they do a scan and they're like, here it is. And you're like, okay, I had no idea that I have this terrible thing happening that I didn't even feel or
Uh-huh.
know.
Yeah.
It's not like I was getting sick or anything, or I was fine other than just like what manifested as a sports injury.
Have you
Chris,
ever been sick before your cancer diagnosis?
Nothing major. No, I've been a pretty healthy person. I mean, I did. That's a longer story, but I when I was in my like mid 20s, I had like a really minor brush with colon cancer, which now later it's like, okay, they found out, like, and especially even my story of being treated,
Hmm.
they found out just like, I had a genetic cause.
mm,
And once they learned that, that's how they treated my cancer. But yeah, I think it kind of put some things together. But I had a very minor brush. They caught it super early when I was in my 20s. And essentially, other than that, I've had nothing. I've lived a very healthy life, and it's not like this is any indication, but like usually when I would go do triathlons and stuff, I'd often, be first in my age group. And, there's a couple races, not a triathlon, but a different race I actually won. So, I mean, I was like, this is the healthy person, and then suddenly I go to the doctor and they're like, you're not just, you don't have just cancer, you have stage 4 cancer, quote,
Jeez.
incurable cancer. So
Mhm.
Wow.
It's like a terminal cancer.
yeah. So
um
speaking of that,
yeah.
Chris, when you heard those words, right? So a sentence. Sometimes they call it a sentence, right? But from your perspective, did it cross your mind that I might die, or what is the emotion that moment when you heard that?
Yeah, I mean, yes, it's you feel that. I mean, first of all, you just kind of feel like hope is one of those things you take for granted. If you're living and breathing and able to like function, you usually have some kind of hope. And it just like hit that hard, where I just felt like my life, I couldn't see what was ahead. And my biggest fear was, leaving. I'm like, I've lived a good life. It's been good in a lot of ways. It would be short at 37, but my biggest fear was leaving my wife and my daughter. We just had our daughter that summer of 2015. And
Wow.
I wish I would have met my wife earlier. We got married, I was 34. And then we finally had our daughter a couple years later. And it was just,
You're just starting another chapter of your life.
yeah,
It's just
yeah. So to have that threatened, it was the worst feeling ever.
Feeling. And just really quickly, before we go on to your cancer journey story, where were you born and where did you grow up? Uh, if you can
school
tell
did
us a
you
little
go
bit about
to?
you.
Because I forgot to ask you that during the bio request.
Oh,
So,
yeah, no problem. So I grew up Sioux Falls, South Dakota, which is where we currently live. Yeah, that's where I grew up. So
And I understand that you move somewhere first, and then now you're back at home. You can call
Colorado.
it
yeah, sure.
back
I've
home.
lived a lot of places.
Yeah.
I was in Florida for a while.
Uh huh.
I was in Utah for a while, and then I was in Colorado, which is where I met my wife, and we lived there for a while. We lived in Colorado
Yeah.
Springs, and we lived in the Boulder area, and we love Colorado. We feel very at home there.
How long did you
South
live in
Dakota,
Colorado for?
it would have been like 4 or 5 years.
5 years.
And South Dakota is home too, very much.
Yeah.
But and that's where my family's at. But I kind of feel like my two homes would be Colorado and South Dakota. So
Absolutely. Now, your first daughter was born in Colorado or South Dakota?
Colorado. Yeah. She was
Colorado,
born
okay.
in Longmont, which is right near Boulder. So yeah.
Beautiful
Absolutely.
place.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
understand you have two kids now. So when was the second one born?
Yeah, so we had Eddie. It would have been, I guess 16 months ago. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
Congratulations.
Mhm.
So
Thanks.
one girl and one boy.
Yep.
That's
Chris,
awesome.
do you have a family history of cancer?
Not at all. No. Um, maybe some I think maybe prostate cancer and one of my grandpas, and they caught it early, and it wasn't a big deal, but that's it. And my mom's side, nothing. My parents, nothing. My siblings, nothing. So yeah, this was a shock for us all. I mean, as you know,
Yeah.
like cancer is not just an individual thing. It's like, it hits your whole circle, your
Your
family,
core,
your
basically.
friends.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
And
right.
good question, Chris, because I know having that type of information, and sometimes it's too much information right away to process, number one. And then my
Yeah.
question would be, what's the type of treatment that you look
Undergone.
for in order to get answer? If
Uh,
you can give us, a little bit background on that, so that the listener can also learn, because sometimes sharing those information to our listener give them, some survival
Yeah.
guide, if can, so.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
No, I mean, that's such a huge part of the journey of trying to find the best medical care you can get. And that can be challenging too. And I mean, I would say, obviously I'm not a doctor, and Hope Has Arrived. We don't really give medical recommendations, but myself personally, so when I went through it, we ended up meeting this experimental research doctor. And I came back to South Dakota to get treated, really just to be near my family. And here was this guy. He used to run Sloan Kettering.
That's in New York
cancer-
City.
Yeah, he's a pretty smart guy, very, very renowned in the world. And he happened to be here, and he and his team he's been working a lot with genomic sequencing, which is where they,
NIH
they're
has one of the,
yeah, they're trying to find out what's causing your cancer, not just this is what the type is. Let's just do whatever, blindly treat it. Let's figure out can we treat the drivers of your cancer? And that's what they did for me. And I think it ended up giving a much better result than they expected. And some of that's because of what was driving my cancer. And then the other part, because it's like they say now, what is it, N of one, where cancer is unique to what's causing it is unique to every person. And so they
yeah.
they're learning to treat it that way. And so I guess I would say, again, I'm not a doctor, but I think there are breakthroughs in genomic sequencing. When I first got it, it would have been 4.5 years ago. It was newer, but now I'm pleased to report that so many cancer centers are doing that, and many of them, it's like standard of care to if you're stage 4, standard of care, they're going to genomic sequence you and figure out if there's other options they can do. And so I just think it's good for people just to kind of see what's out there. And I think the hope too is that people are working tirelessly to come up with new treatments. And
Yeah.
what that doctor used to tell me too is he said, there is so much hope right now because there are people working tirelessly, and the rate at which new treatments are coming it's advancing rapidly. If you compare it to
Exactly.
even 2 years ago or 5 years ago or 10 years ago,
Absolutely.
it's a different world. And so I think for people, even if today you're like, I don't know if they're giving me medical hope, it's like, man, if you can just hang on, it could be right around the corner, like literally right around the corner. I believe that, and I'm thankful about that. I mean, I think for me, hope came from more than just medical, but it's also my spiritual beliefs, and just my relationship with God is really a big part of all of that. That's kind of the bedrock, I would say. But the medical hope is huge, and so yeah, I guess I would just say that for people, there's hope. Like there are new developments every day, and you'd be surprised. They might even be in your backyard.
Yeah.
Kind of like with me, I came back to my hometown, not because I thought I was going to the biggest cancer research facility in the world. It was just my hometown. So
Yeah. Now, one thing that some of our listeners as well is probably wondering, it's the advocacy. For example, when you feel badly and you got this cancer and you advocated for yourself, or did you had a family member that advocated for yourself, like looking at the reports, looking at other sources of medical proceedings and all that stuff? Did you have anybody that you had to go through as a advocate for you?
Yeah, and the support system basically, I think what also want to add for with Emmerich was
Advocate.
saying,
Yeah.
Chris, the support system is very critical for any cancer patient and survivor, right? Because the
yeah,
support, is really, that's the thing that we want you to share with us, to our listener, because, we're just blessed to, us, and being a
The
cancer
survivors.
survivor too. So
yeah.
if you can give us, the background of how the support system helped you,
Sure.
that'll be great.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think for me, my family was huge. I was out in Colorado, which there's probably a lot bigger, and there's bigger cancer centers out there. There was a
Mm-hmm.
lot of them, but we came back home because I wanted to be supported by my family through this
Mm-hmm.
journey, and that
Yeah.
was incredible. And I think that was, my whole family kind of rallied around me in a lot of ways. And
Yeah.
my dad was everybody was encouraging. I'd say especially my dad. He was
Uh-huh.
just really. He even came to some of those appointments with my wife and I. We just that was indispensable. I mean, just to be going through
Yeah.
that, and that's hard. That's hard to
Yeah.
take on for family, because it's like especially diagnosis is the toughest. It's like your world just gets shattered. Like what you
Yeah.
think is tomorrow has changed. And of course, there's hope that it can change, but it looks bad,
Yeah.
And so my family was, and I wish I had a story of me doing all this research to find the best treatment and all that, but honestly, that's not what happened. We just kind of we went to one cancer center, and it was kind of under construction, and the doctor was younger than me, and and it was just I'm like, I don't feel confident here. So we went to the other one,
Uh-huh.
and that's where that
Exactly.
You
research
went to 3 oncologists. That's what you said in your story.
That's correct. Yeah, I went to 3 oncologists, and it was kind of the second one I went to, or actually it'd have been the third one, and then they connected me with the research doctor who
Yeah.
helped come up with my treatment plan. So
And Chris, that is
Yeah.
important by saying that you need
Oh,
to
yeah.
have some second opinion. That's what, when the doctor, give you that kind of say, hey, do a second opinion, not just like,
yeah,
following what I said,
Absolutely.
that's good.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
Chris, how long were you in treatments, and what was the biggest challenge during your treatment?
Yeah, treatment. It was it was like a year, maybe even more, depending on how you count it. Because I did do immunotherapy for a few years, and I did chemo for I think that was 9 months or something. Too long.
You
whatever
lost your
it was.
hair? You lost your hair?
No, it thinned. It thinned, but it was a type of chemo that it didn't. It wasn't so concentrated. It was still bad. It was poison, But
It's this poison. Exactly.
that's right. But no, it was. And what was the hardest part? Oh, gosh, man, just it's kind of a grind. And when you're, I think, okay, the hardest part was towards the beginning when I felt like it was hopeless. That's
Mm-hmm.
when it was the hardest, because then it's like, so why am I, going through all this treatment stuff
Mhm.
if there's nothing, or if there's not anything on the other side for me? Like why do this? And I think it was that was a battle. That was a battle. And I think as I mentioned, kind of in the about page on Hope Has Arrived. I mean, that doctor, he was just really encouraging. Because he said, "I know how to treat this," and it was, you know, there was just something about that. It just changed a lot for me and my family, and it was just kind of felt like we had this hope. And
Yeah.
I'll tell you, you know, other doctors were not saying the same hope. So I kind of had this
Mm-hmm.
tension of like, no, you're locked in this. And this other doctor's like, no, there's new research. That's
That's
not
the kind of
necessarily.
doctor we need.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody needs one. Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
you know, and, but that was a huge part of it. I think that was a huge part of it.
And that is a good emphasis right now in this show, Chris, that you mentioning that, because we didn't get a chance to ask those kind of questions from a previous guest, because connection with the doctor, your primary oncologist, is an important. I haven't shared it to the listeners as well. I had that experience. It didn't take against the doctor, but it's just I did not connect with the doctor first. And when I found out that I have more better with this other doctor, that's how I felt comfortable. Number one, of
Yeah.
because
And that's
you're
and that's when
right.
that's when the hope started springing, when you
Mm-hmm.
get that connection, because you'll be able to share whatever the pains, aches, anything and everything that you can feel to that doctor, and they know exactly what to do for you.
And the doctor that Chris is talking about, his name is
Yes,
Dr. Leyland Jones. Is that right?
Yes.
Best
That's right.
known for leading major changes in breast cancer clinical trials and treatments, as well as his ongoing focus on how genomics play a vital role in the fight against breast
maybe we
cancer
should
and other
invite him
cancers.
too. Chris, if you don't mind, introduce us to him, and we'll be happy to interview him and share his knowledge, because the
I would
more
love
we
that.
share
The
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 story of
world.
you and him, this is how we feel our primary mission is to really care and collaborate, educate, and research and tell the cancer
Yeah.
community. So
You need to talk to
Yeah.
him. Yeah, he's great. He's
Mm-hmm.
he's a wonderful man too. I mean, he just people love him. Patients love him. Yeah, I would love to connect you with him.
Is
He's
he from South Dakota?
no, he's from Great Britain.
Oh,
yeah,
but he's
so Chris,
practicing in
Is he
South
Brit?
Dakota, right?
Okay.
yeah,
Yes, and now he has moved on to some other. Gosh, he's doing some stuff out of New York.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's all over the place. He is passionate. He's one of those researchers that, and this is what's great is there are more Dr. Leyland Joneses, Dr. Brian Leyland Jones. There's more like him out there
yeah.
that they just care about people. They
Mm-hmm.
want to cure cancer. They are tirelessly doing it. And I
Mm-hmm.
guarantee the pandemic's not stopping him and
Yeah.
others that are, they want to see this happen. And, like my story, there's a lot of other people that he's helped too.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's, him and a lot of his colleagues, and there's many others, out there too that are doing that. It's just, it's hopeful,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
hopeful.
And
Wow.
I just found some information about the bile duct cancer. It's actually on the bileductcancer.com. It's a full research information about it. It is a rare, serious, progressive malignancy with approximate 8,000 to 10,000 new cases diagnosed in the U.S. every year. And it says here, yeah, you're right. The patients are usually diagnosed between the ages of 50 and 70 years of age. Um, Holy smoke! 5 year survival rate is 7 to 20% for all ages, for all stages of CCA. Um, yeah, it's there's the great thing is there's information there, and And I can't believe we're talking to someone who experienced all of this because they says the causes the causes is coming from, you can't say where it's coming from really
Well,
because
it's
it's coming from
unknown.
different yeah. And but a lot of them is the gastrointestinal malignancy, primary and liver cancers type, but wow.
You don't want to read it.
Yeah,
So,
it's a lot of information.
9:30,
You know what's
guys.
funny?
Is
Yeah,
it-
what's funny, Chris?
I kept myself from reading a lot of it because after a while I started looking at it and I'm like,
Yeah,
I'm scared out of my
depressing.
mind.
It's
Mhm.
depressing.
Just reading about it.
It's
I don't want to
depressing.
know.
right? Yeah. So
Depressing.
just find a good, a very good opinion, different doctors, and find your doctor. I'm glad that you found him. It is 9:31, huh? Okay,
Yes,
go ahead.
it's 9:31 in the evening here on our radio show on the air with FACC. At this point in time, Emmerich is going to introduce our guest singing artist tonight.
I'm very excited to introduce you all our special guest tonight, Excelsa de Jesus, a young philanthropist, and she's a performer, a model, and a beauty queen. The latest title that she's holding is the Miss Republic of the Philippines International 2018-2020 here was in the U.S. And she graduated American Musical and Dramatic Academy in Manhattan, New York. Musical theater was her major. She's done a lot of Broadway shows and different concerts as well in New York, Florida, and Philippines. And really excited for her to share her talent to all of us. And she is a daughter of one of our board of directors. So we're really excited. Please welcome Miss Excelsa de Jesus.
Like a small boat on the ocean, sending big waves into motion. Like how a single word can make a heart open. I might only have one match, but I can make an explosion. And all those things I didn't say, wrecking balls inside my brain. I will scream them loud tonight. Can you hear my voice this time? This is my fight song. Take back my life song. Prove I'm alright song. My power's turned on. Starting right now, I'll be strong. I'll play my fight song. And I don't really care if nobody else believes. 'Cause I still got a lot of fire left in me. Losing friends and I'm chasing sleep. Everybody's worried about me. I'm in too deep. Say I'm in too deep. And it's been 2 years, I miss my home, but there's a fire burning in my bones, and I still believe. Yeah, I still believe. All those things I didn't say, wrecking balls inside my brain. I will scream them loud tonight. Can you hear my voice this time? And this is my fight song. Take back my life song. Prove I'm alright song. My power's turned on. Starting right now, I'll be strong. I'll play my fight song. And I don't really care if nobody else believes. 'Cause I've still got a lot of fire left in me. A lot of fire left in me. Like a small boat on the ocean, sending big waves into motion. Like how a single word can make a heart open. I might only have one match, but I can make an explosion. This is my fight song. Take back my life song. Prove I'm alright song. No, I've still got a lot of fight left in me.
Thank you so much, Excelsa
Thank
de
you.
Jesus. Now let's go back to our special guest, Chris Lawrence. Chris, during those times that you were undergoing the treatments, how did you distract yourself from the side effects of the cancer treatment?
Yeah. I mean, I think part of it for me was just trying to live in hope still. I think just, because it's when I had points in my journey where I just felt like I didn't have hope. I mean, there was a few times I remember my wife and I, it's like, why do we feel like we're kind of like, there's no zest or life left in us right now? And there were some days like that. And I think then, I mean, we even had to come to points because I feel like I mentioned, it's not like the doctors are like, oh, this is, it's not like everybody was saying this is going to go well for you, because it has gone really well for me. And I'm really grateful for that. But we kind of had to choose it. We kind of had to choose hope and choose that we were going to live in that. And I think, for me, okay, so there's a couple things. I would say, like practically how that looked, like my, I've always loved outdoor adventure. And I still tried to get out and do as much as I could, even, and however I felt. And usually when I was doing chemo, I had about 2 or 3 days a week that I could actually maybe go out and do a little bit. And then I remember sometimes like I would dream of some of my days in the mountains. Like when I used to live in Utah, and one of my favorite things to do is backcountry skiing, which is like where you hike back into the mountains. You're not in a ski resort, but you're in the mountains and you're skiing down these mountains. And I had a lot of really good close friends that I would do that with, and I would dream about that. It was really interesting, and I would be living those days, and that was super encouraging to me. And then I think too, and honestly, my source of hope is really my faith and just my relationship with God, and just believing that, there's a verse that says, as for me, I will always have hope. And I just believe that I just kind of had to plant that flag and say, no, there's always going to be hope for me. And that wasn't necessarily like, I always know that there's going to be medical hope. I wish, but no, I think that, and I think when I did get some medical hope, that was a gift, but I had to plant that flag, that no matter what happens, I will have hope, whether that's in eternity, after this life, or in this life. And even just part of that too was like trusting that, so if things didn't go well, that God would take care of my family, that they'd be okay. And that is, that's a hard reality. And I've had a chance to interview a lot of other cancer survivors and even their family members who've lost them. And it's very, very hard. It's very challenging, but a lot of the ones that have, and I'd be careful how I talk about this, just because some people, I understand a lot of people don't grow up with a spiritual background. And so I don't want to like talk in like a foreign language, you know what I mean? But for me, it's been very helpful. And, my relationship with God has been helpful. And I feel like anybody who wants that, it's available. Yeah. But I've heard so many family members that have had that hope, kind of that spiritual hope. And it was gut-wrenchingly hard, but just to hear how they've been able to walk through that and still like find hope and ways to live and even to honor that family member. It's just, I see that, even if, I just feel like there's a type of hope you can have that's undefeatable. It can't be defeated, even if you don't have medical hope. Yeah. And man, I want that for everybody to have medical hope. And, but it's like, it doesn't matter. Like there's a hope that's stronger, because we're all going to die someday, and it's been really interesting, even as I've walked through survivorship, how, and especially when you're first going through it, all eyes are on you, like, oh, this guy's life is really fragile. And it kind of ignores that other people. It's like, hey man, everybody's life is fragile. I just think people with cancer know that more, or their families know that more, because they're walking through that. And of course, I mean, the pandemic is obviously let us all know we're a little bit more fragile than we want to be. But I just think that, then there's been some weird things that have happened, like some people I knew that even had passed away, that just something unexpected happened. And I'm just like, hey man, we're all kind of on this journey, and life is fragile, it's uncertain. And everybody needs hope, not just people facing cancer, but even more so. So maybe that was a long answer to your question.
I just want to piggyback with that question, and how the cancer really impact relationship with married couple. I know. How did this experience, the journey of cancer, impacted your relationship with your wife, Chris? I know I want to tell the story because sometimes when this type of journey, people have different experiences. I just want you to know that I've been encountered where they actually got divorced or it got worse. So therefore, it's not always happy ending when, because it's a big stress, a lot financially, emotionally. So how about yours in terms of the cancer? How did the cancer impact?
That's a great question. And I think I was reading an article on your site that was underscoring that, I thought it was on your site about, the high rates of divorce among couples where one of them gets cancer. Yeah, that's hard. It was definitely challenging. I think the one thing that we had going for us, I think we'd already been through some other stuff. We lost a son before I ever got cancer. It was a stillbirth. Everything was going great. And then a month 7 or 8, like it just happened. And it was so hard. It was, every bit as hard as maybe even what I went through, except it just happened like so quick and there was nothing we could do except just grieve. And that's another one of those things that rips couples apart. And I think what we found was that we kind of had this choice. And I remember we even said, like, we can't let this tear us apart. We got to come together. And I think we did that in cancer too. And my wife, she is such a kind person. She's amazing. And it was hard because I think the caregiver journey is very challenging, and I'm only just picking up I'm understanding more pieces all the time, but about like how hard that was for her during that. That put some stress on our relationship, and she had to pick up a lot of the slack, just and it's hard to like kind of just let yourself be served, when you're feeling so terrible. And we were able to make it through that. And it's not like there weren't hard days, but we've done a good job, I think, of not kind of turning on each other. We were certainly scared days, and kind of had to struggle to stay hopeful and walk through that. And then I think too, as you go through your cancer journey, like, your life has changed. Life is constantly changing in different ways, and the cancer journey is like that. You don't stay in the same place. Like you go through these different stages. I actually even talk about that on my website. There's one called Cancer Journey Seasons. There's kind of like a bunch of different seasons you go through. But like there was like that initial diagnosis, and then there was the treatment phase, which was hard. And then the survivorship, which was actually, that was kind of challenging too. Some unexpected things I didn't expect. They're saying, "Oh, you're doing well. No evidence of disease, and everything's great, right?" It's like, no, it's not. It's not great.
Okay, Chris, I want you to really explain this particular topic, because a lot of the Filipino culture, that's what we're trying to educate. When I experienced personally about, I mentioned to you about survival guilt. So if you don't mind giving what is a life look like after surviving? Because being in a cancer patient, you have all the support system out there. Surviving is a different journey or a season, right? So can you give us a little bit more personal background on
Sure.
that?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's hard. There's surprising challenges because you're kind of, you're dealing with some of those physical side effects, first of all, but there's also good things too. It's really interesting. Like it's like you feel more fully alive than you've ever been. It's like coming out of a long, hard winter and you hit this springtime and you're just like, man, I want to live. You know, I'm like, let's go climb some mountains. Let's do something. Like, let's, you know, and I think we did for like was it our 5th anniversary? We went on this big like tour of some national parks and went canyoneering and climbing and stuff. And it was great. But then there's some hard things too. Like, you know, you asked about our relationship, and I think we had to adjust because she was my caregiver. She was my primary caregiver.
Yeah.
My wife's name is Elizabeth. And we had to, as I got healthier and felt better, and I started kind of resuming work. And I think I went down to like part-time work. I was still trying to keep working, but then went back to full-time. But we had to adjust in our relationship, and she had to actually get to this point. And I had to too. It's like, no, you're her husband again, you know, and like, she's no longer your caregiver. And, you know, these would be her words, not mine, but she'd be like, you know, you're my strong husband again. And like, that's a whole other story I could get into, but I mean, we went on this canyoneering trip. The short of the story is it was like a marriage retreat in a really good way. But we got, maybe I'll tell the story later, but the short of it is we went on this really long canyoneering route. And that's like, canyoneering is like, it's a combination between hiking and rappelling and even a little bit of climbing. And we were in Zion National Park. We went through this really remote canyon and our rope got stuck. And we were basically in a situation where if we couldn't get our rope unstuck, we're probably gonna have to spend the night and possibly get rescued. And what ended up happening was I had to ascend up this rope. It was in this overhung spot. It's extremely physically demanding, and we did not have the best tools to do it. I was able to do it, and it was like, it took me like an hour, and I don't feel like I felt that physically exerted. You know, I was already operating at partial capacity, recovering, you know, from all that treatment, but I was able to do it. And it was kind of, we had this moment, and I was able to get it. We were, you know, able to get out, and it was fine. But it was like, we kind of had to get to this point. It was like, it is now time to transition your relationship. You are no longer the patient. You are no longer the caregiver. I mean, of course, we're going to care for each other, but like, not like it was in the thick of it during that treatment phase. Yeah. And so we had to adjust. And I think that was really healthy for our marriage. And I didn't even realize how bad we needed it. So I think it's good for couples it's okay to be hunkered down and be in the pit together. And then it's also okay to kind of enter a different season. And, you know, cancer is complicated. So sometimes you repeat parts of the journey, you know, you don't want to. But, you know, I think I think hope was I know that's such a buzzword in cancer, but it's so true. It's like, I think when you have that and you can kind of both walk in that together, it shines a light on your path. And so you can kind of see things more clearly. Because if fear is like the driving factor and things like that, it's just, it's gonna be really hard on your relationship. You know, like it's not like we didn't have to fight fear. We had to fight it together. It was
Chris,
really hard.
Don't worry, don't apologize. I think you're saying that I'm hampering too much about hope. No, actually, we need more than ever to spread the word hope. Okay. When I was, you know, doing my cancer journey as well, I was, you know, in the beginning for almost a year, I have no desire to read anything about cancer stuff, right? But, you know, since I able to like start having that emotions, I read the book of Radical Remission. So Dr. Kelly Turner and Bailey introduced, you know, her to me as well and all kind of stuff. So she actually having a book, second book. Her first book is called Radical Remission, but now she's also focusing about hope. So it's now called Radical Hope. So I encourage to our listener, if you guys want to read a good book, it's called Radical Hope by Dr. Kelly Turner. So
I have last two questions for you, Chris. What has cancer taught you about life?
Yeah. I think it's taught me a lot. But I mean, I think it's definitely kind of clarifies like, you know, we all would like to think we're going to live forever. And that, you know, I think we spend a lot of our time and a lot of our life suppressing the truth that someday we will die. And we like to just ignore that, you know, take that and put it in a corner and tuck it away. But it's like, I think for the journey for me helped me figure out like, what do I really want to focus my time on? And I think it helped me ask questions in my marriage. We talked about marriage, you know, like I'd say, I asked my wife the question, and I probably wouldn't have asked this before. I mean, we had a good relationship before this, but I said, you know, tell me, you know, like what we went through this event, like how could I be a better husband? You know, like what our relationship's been good, but like, tell me like how, you know, how am I doing as a loving husband? Like what else, you know, what can I do better? Or I want to hear, because life is shorter than you'd like to think it is. And I want to use that time. So it kind of clarifies some things like that. And then the second thing too, I think it just gave me this radical appreciation of hope and what it is. And it made me want to spend a lot of my life helping other people find hope, strength, and peace. I think those are kind of three virtues that everybody needs. And I'm doing that primarily with the cancer community. But, you know, I find, and I get this all the time with people that are commenting on all the articles that we have on Facebook. And it's a great thing, actually. It's where we have such a community going there. It's been really fun. And so we get a lot of feedback. And that's been really rewarding to be able to be a part of that. And even hear people, and you know, it's like I tell a lot of, it's not just my story. I'm a journalist. Journalism is my background. You know, I studied to be a journalist, and I did that at a newspaper and other things. So I love telling other people's story. And what I find is, you know, I've had some pretty cool things that have happened, but I find that there are a lot of amazing people who've walked through this journey, and I love telling their stories. And I love it when people write on, you know, comment on a Facebook post or whatever, just about like how this was so hopeful for me, you know, or this today I felt this way, and I read this and I just feel uplifted. And I've had a lot of people write that. It's so encouraging. And it's, you know, it's not like, hey man, I was just the one that told the story, but it was their story that they entrusted me with. And anyway, so
Chris, I'm telling you, that is actually where the FACC started, where Josie also had a similar background as you as a journalist. And she wrote stories in the book, that the Filipino American Cancer Journey. And that's why I think our, you know, friendship that, you know, we kind of told the story.
That's
here.
how it all started.
It all started with a book.
With a book and telling other people's story, the struggles and the successes of how you face adversity in life, whether it's a cancer or relationship, poverty. And really, I told you, hope is never too much.
Said enough. It's never said enough. Yeah.
So we have 6 minutes on our radio show. My last question for you, Chris. What advice would you give to someone who feels like there is no hope in the fight against cancer?
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely understand that and identify that. And I don't want, you know, it's like, it's a very real feeling. So I don't want to be like, well, here's what you got to do. Pull up your bootstraps. Like, no, like, I think you need to acknowledge if you're feeling that, and also recognize it and say like, wow. I think what's really helpful, and I actually wrote an email series about this called The Pathway to Hope. You know, kind of you're starting at that place of just feeling utterly hopeless. Like, where do you go from there? You know, and I think part of it is being willing to look outside yourself for that hope. Because I think the cancer journey, it kind of locks us into ourself, and a lot of us go inward. I certainly did. And it's not all bad. You know, I don't want to like that, but it's not a great place to stay. Hope is not just, I don't think the deeper you go into your own self, like, I don't think you're going to find hope there. You know, like, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like there's, like positivity and all. It's very important. But I feel like looking outside of yourself is a very important part of that. And I think, even going ahead, I think like Cancer Journey is an opportunity to consider spiritual hope, like you maybe didn't before. Mm-hmm. And I think to take another look at that. And I almost feel like the more cancer survivors I interact with, it's really unusual, but it's like there's no atheists in foxholes, there's kind of that phrase where I just think a lot of them, like, especially when you lose hope, you're like, can we pray for you? And they're like, absolutely. You're like, do you have a spiritual belief? Yeah. But they're like, no, I don't have a spiritual belief, but yes, prayer, please. So I just think maybe it's a time to consider that maybe that could be a piece, an important piece of someone finding hope. But yeah, I think looking outside of yourself is a great place to start. That's what I would say.
In other words, cancer will give us the opportunity to examine ourselves, especially our personal relationship with God.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
And that's what's great too. It's like an equal opportunity. I mean, it's like, like even Hope Has Arrived. It's for all people facing cancer. It's not for any specific, social class or whatever. I mean, it's like that kind of, that spiritual hope is for everybody. It's such an amazing thing. So.
There you go. Hope Has Arrived. Check their Facebook page with Chris Lawrence. This name, Chris Lawrence, is very popular.
Yeah, I think there's a few of them out there, so you might not find the right one, but it's kind of like John Smith, maybe. I don't know.
Right.
But not Emmerich.
Yes.
There's only one.
There's only one Emmerich Vicente.
There's only one Emmerich in the world.
Emmerich, can you just sing next week? We only have, I think, 1 minute or 2 minutes left here on our radio show.
Absolutely.
Once again, yes, Emmerich, we would like to thank Chris Lawrence for sharing his story and his cancer journey on our radio show On the Air with FACC. Okay, Emmerich.
Thank you so much, Chris, again for being with us, and say hi to Elizabeth for us. Sorry,
Thank you.
She didn't even show up on the camera or anything. And for your baby girl and baby boy, Eddie, and
yes.
What's her name? What's your daughter's name?
Pippa.
Pippa. Oh my God, Pippa.
Is that like from the TV show Peppa?
The cartoon, yeah.
Oh no, not Peppa, but Pippa.
How do you spell it?
Pippa.
Oh, Pippa, not Peppa.
Yeah. Pippa.
But she's familiar with that cartoon though.
Thank you for being with us, and I'm sure our listeners and our viewers on Facebook and on the radio really appreciate you as well for the information you shared. And
thank you.
Best of luck to you. Congratulations with your journey.
Thank you.
And Ed?
Thank you again for our supporter, listener, and Chris. I know this is just a start of our partnership with FACC, and I can't wait for more people that we can share the information and the hope.
And we hope to see you on our induction this year here in Virginia.
Great.
Have you been to DC before?
Yes, it's been a while, but
okay. We hope to see you in person. Thank you so much, Chris.
Thank you,
and thank you so much sa ating mga tagapakinig dito sa PHLV Radio. And once again, please support Filipino American Cancer Care. Happy birthday to my niece, MM. Emmerich, may babatiin ka.
Happy birthday to my niece too, Kayla.
Thank you, Johan.
Thank you, Johan.
This is your Filipino radio experience in Las Vegas. PHLV Radio.